Morning, everybody. Thanks for coming. My co-host today is Mark Stiles. We will introduce ourselves in a moment. But what we wanted to do was just to launch this was it's going to get Mark to sort of take you through um, some of the sort of moods and challenges that if you're dealing with, you might be interested in this offer that we're launching this week. We've done one webinar already this week on Tuesday. This is our second. So hopefully you'll find it interesting. And you will certainly, I think you'll learn something new or a different perspective on things. Okay, Matt, do you want to take it away?
So yeah, thank you very much. Good morning, everybody. Pleasure to be with you. We're looking at today. We're going to kind of be looking at what we can do about 20 kind of moods. The first batch there really about things like struggling with anxiety, attention deficit disorder, ADHD, stress, mood swings. Included kind of sleep as well, and then also, my camera's switched off. And then going on to the next one, Stuart.
Sorry,
no, that's right. And then things like lacking energy, lacking mental focus, lacking that drive to be able to get on and do things, or lacking emotional stability, confidence, as well as things like experiencing those energy crashes, whether they be throughout the day or kind of in the afternoon. Sugar cravings is something that affects quite a lot of people as well. And it may even be that you've been trying to overcome these symptoms for months, years, even. Even we come across people that have been trying to overcome some or even a combination of these moods for decades without success. So what we believe and our experience is that in terms of what we're going to share with you today, that actually hopefully we're going to share some knowledge with you, that with that knowledge on board, that you won't be going back to trying what you've been trying in the past, and perhaps going around the same circuits as you've been doing in the past. So let's share some information with you and
so in terms of our experience, I'm Stuart Black. We've been offering neurofeedback therapy for more than 10 years. We transformed hundreds of lives using that. We're not going to go into a lot of detail on neurofeedback therapy in this webinar because I think we've marketed this primarily to people who've already made inquiries. So we're assuming you know something about that. I published a book, Neurofeedback for Trauma, and launched it at the Trauma Conference in 2022 in Belfast. And I'll let Mark introduce himself.
Thanks, Stuart. I run an organisation called Addiction Smashers, and essentially I've spent the last beyond 25 years now helping people to get an unengageable family member who's suffering with an addiction, be it substance or behavioural, to actually get them robustly engaged in a journey of recovery. And get them to be on that 5 years of remission. So essentially, I've spent 25 years, practicing, researching, and implementing the best methodologies that there are to help people get beyond that addiction. And of course, if we're going to help people to stay in a life living beyond addiction, of course, we have to deal with all of those 20 moods that we mentioned earlier on. That's kind of essentially what I've been doing. And we figured today that really what you were wanting is to get, what we can help with is you get a real understanding of what the real problem is sitting underneath those 20 mood imbalances, a solution that doesn't cause any lasting side effects, we guess that you're looking for a simple and easy solution as well, and also that you're looking for a positive change that can be experienced quickly, because Stuart and I both know that when people come to us, actually experiencing quick change is something that people have just not really ever experienced. But actually what we're going to share with you today does help people to get change very quickly. We guess you also want to be able to get rid of that worry and stress over your family members' moods, behavioural struggles. And we want to empower you to be in command of a recovery journey that you can start really quickly. And also, importantly, is to be able to provide you with solutions that don't make things worse, because we do know, I know only too well that people that I work with, they've had plenty of experience of actually undertaking a recovery or repair journey or treatment, which actually has kind of made things worse from them. And we'll mentioning it later. I mean, what we're talking about today is really working with family members from the age of 3 upwards. So everything we're talking about today actually can help even the youngest members of the family. And we know that what you're looking for is for everyone in the family to be living a joyful and graceful life, and also to prevent future kind of mood, behavioural or addictive struggles, because certainly those moods that we're looking at today are all precursors, individual or in combination, for the potential for addiction later on. And I'm very passionate about preventing people from going down that pathway. I don't want to be treating people for addiction. I want to prevent people from getting there. I also figure that you want to do all of this without the thought, as it says there, of facing and entering months of painful talking therapy, or the thought of trying something else and spending months deciding if it's going to work or not. What we know here with what we're sharing with you today is that every week we experience people seeing change very quickly. So, and that's the other thing I like about this, because it really powerfully allows us to help people to be able to get that quick change. We also know that you kind of want to do this journey probably without having to learn a whole bunch of new daily practices, kind of bringing new things into your routine, and probably also without wanting to feel that you need to learn a whole bunch of new kind of complex and complicated information. So it's about it kind of being quick and simple as well. So looking at who we're reaching out to here, so it's if you have people, either yourself or people in your family, who are struggling with one or more of those 20 moods that we talked about, because we know they impact not only the person that's struggling with them, but they impact the people around them as well. It kind of means that people can't get to live the life they want to do. They can't be doing the things they want to do necessarily at all, or when they want to do them. You quite often find yourselves having to alter plans, change routines, deal with sudden changes of situations and plans, and perhaps you're watching here today because there are people that you love and care about who are just continuously in some kind of mood or emotional, I don't really like the word mental, but mental health struggle. That's kind of a bit of a term that I think is quite widely misused, really. What we're looking at here is mood, emotional and behavioural struggles, essentially. Yeah. It may be that you're here today as a parent. You might be here as a sibling concerned about another sibling in the family. You might be here as a grandparent. And maybe in that capacity, you think you should have the solution to however somebody's struggling, because we do, particularly, so I'm a parent and grandparent, and of course I like to feel that I've got, I've got a solution to offer to my children and grandchildren. It may be that you are feeling guilty, either because your mood condition is impacting others. It may be impacting your parents, or it may be impacting your children. It may be impacting people that are worried about you. And today we want to, if it is you that you're here to deal with your mood, so we want to empower you to be able to quickly get on and do something about it. It may be that you're seeing young people in your family struggling. Maybe they're struggling with anxiety. Maybe they've been struggling with stress for a long time. Maybe you've got people in your family who are struggling with school or college, university, or social anxiety. Actually, we do know when it comes to universities, there's a huge percent, about 70% of university students require some form of emotional support during the course of going through university. Or perhaps, as a parent, you're struggling with stress, anxiety, social phobias, and you kind of want to be there fully present for your children. So we can, again, help you to be able to do that quickly. Of course, the other reason you may be here is that the family have suffered a major trauma. It could be an accident, a bereavement, or perhaps a major health diagnosis, which can really throw the emotional responses of people in the family. Maybe you are literally feeling beyond hope because you've tried medication, you've tried talking therapies, you've tried behavioral systems, and it hasn't really made much difference at all. Maybe you or members of your family have gone down that traditional route of emotional mood, mental health, which is about getting medication and talking therapy. And it may be that either of those things, either the medication has actually made you feel worse, maybe your symptoms are even worse, maybe the talking therapy has left you with things feeling worse. And actually that's because if talking therapy has actually kind of left you feeling worse, that's because actually what hasn't been addressed is some of the underlying, the real true drivers of these mood imbalances. And that's what we're going to talk to you about today. That's what we're going to kind of lift the lid on for you today. Thanks, Stuart. It may be that, so really, whatever the reason is that you're here today, whether it's for yourself, whether it's for family members, we welcome you, and we're just going to invite you to spend the next 10-15 minutes while we share a completely new paradigm, maybe new to you. It's not new to us. We've been doing this for, what we're going to share with you today, incidentally, has all been around for a half a century or more. The reason that it's not being put in your way before is probably related to the fact that the pharmaceutical industry do not want you to find methodologies that that allow you to get well, allow you to be living joyful and wonderful lives without their medications. So hopefully we're going to give you some keys today to be able to help the family to you or the family, or you and your family, to be able to move forward really quickly and experience some change very quickly.
Thank you, Mark. So I just a little introduce ourselves again. We're not going to repeat what we just said, but what's happened is that we've been offering this neurofeedback therapy, which is primarily about the regulation of the electrical system within your nervous system, which we will drill down into more detail in a moment. And Mark's been working with lots of behavioral aspects, but one of the things Mark has discovered on his journey is the importance of the chemistry within the nervous system, the neurotransmitters, and how sometimes they are depleted, and we can take action to remediate that. Again, we will go down into much more detail on that in a moment. But what's happened is that Mark's found that his clients have benefited tremendously from what we offer. We found that some of our clients have benefited tremendously from what he offers. So let's bring it together. Let's create an integrated offer. which brings these two very, very closely related disciplines together in a way that we've never done this before, at least in outside the USA. Okay, there's a couple, 2 or 3 people in the USA offering this as an integrated program, but we're not aware of anyone outside that territory. So some of the transformation journeys that we've achieved, we do intend to send the slides out. We had a bit of a glitch with our recording process last week, but hopefully the recording process will work well today. And if it doesn't, we'll find another way around it to get this out to you. But one of the things here to understand is that we tailor the measures of success to the individual. So we are interested, in diagnosis, but they're just of interest. What we're really interested in symptoms, what's causing those underlying symptoms, and what we can do to remediate the causes of those underlying symptoms. So although this was a young man with an ADHD diagnosis, if you look closely enough, you will see that the symptoms are not necessarily exactly those that you would need to get an ADHD diagnosis. They are what he and his parents cared about and what he wanted to see reduced. And you can see a little bit of a choppy journey, but significant reduction from where he was at the beginning to where he concluded the program with us. A 21-year-old man with severe anxiety, couldn't go to college. We remediated that. A girl called Isla. So some of these are actually models because not that many people want to have their real faces. This is an exception. Gracie, you can see Gracie's video on our other website, our Brain Train UK website, where she talks to camera about how the neurofeedback therapy had been transformational for her. Okay, so I'm just going to hand back over to Mark. He's going to introduce sort of 4 big ideas that we're going to share, and then we'll dig into the meat of it. Thank you.
Oh yeah, thanks, Stuart. Excuse me. So the first big key that we want to share with you is exactly why you've not been able to kind of reduce or repair or live beyond the impacts of your mood balances. As Stuart's already alluded to, what we know are that there are 2 big hidden critical drivers that actually doctors, psychiatrists, psychologists, counselors, life coaches, wellness coaches, ADHD coaches are just not able to tell you about because they've never been trained. They've never been given this information. And actually, I work with an academy in the United States that trains people in terms of mental health and the whole nutritional and biochemical piece of mental health. And we have, so all of those professions you see there on the screen come to the academy for training to get the bit that they're missing. The second thing is that we're going to just kind of really explain why those current approaches that we normally reach out to for mood imbalances, such as psychiatry and psychotherapy, which always take the pathway of including medication, and share a little bit about why that they quite often can fail. And actually, the interesting thing that I kind of Stuart and I were talking about is that actually psychiatry, which obviously is about the brain, you realize it's the only medical discipline that doesn't actually examine or test the organs that they're actually treating. So they don't actually examine the brain, and they don't examine or even look really much into the gut-brain axis either. So we'll share a little bit more about that. And thirdly, that how neuroscience, neuroplasticity, tell you a little bit more about that as we go through if you haven't come across it before, how they can quickly address these underlying, as I have to call them, the hidden causes of the mood imbalance. So we're going to share a little bit with you about that, and actually why that means you don't necessarily even need talking therapies. And fourthly, what happens when we combine this re-regulation and balancing of the electrical signals and the chemical signaling. this combination is hugely powerful. As Stuart said, many of my addiction clients, I will always include neurofeedback therapy in their journeys. But what's really great about this as well is that, as we've mentioned, we can tell very quickly whether this is going to work for you or not, whether this combination works for you or not. What's really brilliant about this is that if that doesn't prove to be working in that relatively short period of time, then that's a really great discovery, because the methodologies we use, because they should make a difference to your moods very quickly. If they're not, what that tells us is that there's one or more other kind of little fault in one or more of the body's other 15 major systems, and actually are blocking this methodology from helping your mood change. So if you think about it, if a fast acting methodology can't shift your moods, and you've already been perhaps struggling for months or years anyway, for us to be able to understand and be able to say to you, look, actually there's something deeper lie, we need to dive down, we need to go that next level deeper and have a look at where the problems are coming in terms of these other kind of 15 major systems that run our amazing bodies. So those are the things that we're going to share with you today.
Thanks, Mark. Okay, so this is a relatively new slide, so we'll see how well it works. And it really just contrasts in the traditional approach to medicine vis-a-vis the approach that we're advocating today. So it all starts with symptoms. That's what we want to see fixed. However, the medical model will tend to focus on diagnosis, for which you have to join a waiting list. Then you'll get a diagnosis, you'll get a label or labels attached to your set of symptoms, and then you join another waiting list. And then if you're fortunate enough, you'll get some sort of treatment, which will tend to be medication or therapy. And I'm going to talk about in a moment some of the limitations of that current paradigm for mental health. Okay, the approach that we're going to talk about, and this is a little bit of a teaser, we'll talk about it in more detail in a few slides, is what if instead of searching for a diagnosis, we actually try and understand what the root causes are. If we do some sort of assessment of your symptoms, identify what's going on, and then come up with a remediation plan to remediate those symptoms. And in the case of what we're offering today, that is all about re-regulation of your nervous system, both the electrical and the chemical parts of it. Okay, so it's a bit of a teaser, as I said. We will elaborate in more detail in a moment. So there are two current views of mental health. Okay, the first one I'm going to talk about is the psychiatric paradigm, which views mental health as, by and large, an issue of brain chemistry imbalance. Okay, your brain chemistry is imbalanced. So the solution is you take medication to change the brain chemistry. Can be very powerful, but it has limited effectiveness. But it doesn't work for everyone. It does not even claim to address the root cause. Because of that, it only works whilst it's being taken. And as I'm sure many of you know, there are many common side effects. Okay. Then we got the psychotherapeutic paradigm for mental health, which sees mental health challenges as issues of learned behavior. And the solution is to unlearn that behavior through therapy. Again, limited effectiveness. It does not address the root cause if the trauma has caused physiological changes. We'll talk about this in a moment, but very often if we've been through trauma, we see changes in the body. Bessel van der Kolk talks about this in his book, The Body Keeps the Score, which I know many of you have come across. It does not address that. You cannot talk your way out of physiological dysregulation, and it's inaccessible for many. So many cultures are not comfortable talking about their challenges in this way. Many young people are unable to talk about what's happened to them, either because it's just too overwhelming or They may have been too young to remember, or not remembering is a coping mechanism. Okay, so severe limitations with those current paradigms of mental health, and in particular, they do not address nervous system dysregulation. Okay, so what do we mean by nervous system regulation? Well, good nervous system regulation is the ability of the brain and the rest of the nervous system to adapt to circumstances. The ability to respond resourcefully, i.e., flexibly manage our moods, be attentive, calm, active, able to think before acting and choose our actions, and stable when under pressure, either physical or emotional, and a lack of somatic symptoms, i.e. a lack of bodily symptoms. And the nervous system runs throughout the body. So, when we have a dysregulated nervous system, there are all sorts of symptoms that can arise, not just so-called mental health symptoms. Okay. They're just a little picture of how the nervous system breaks down, and parts that often get a lot of attention are the sympathetic and the parasympathetic nervous system. This is your fight or flight. This is your relax, the fight or flight or freeze. This is your relax recovery. Okay, so there are multiple types of nervous system dysregulation. And when we do our neurofeedback assessment, we're looking at all of these types of dysfunction. I'm not going to go into all of them in detail, but I'll basically summarize them. So you've got arousal regulation, which I will go into in more detail in a second. Stability, excitability, dysregulation. This is things like seizures, migraines, panic attacks. These are all instabilities within the nervous system. We can get disinhibition dysregulation, where the inhibitory control part of our brain is not working properly. We can get localized dysfunctions, sometimes caused by birth defects, sometimes caused by accidents, either traumatic injury to the brain or internal injury as a result of strokes or other similar neurological issues. And learned fears and habits can also dysregulate our nervous system. So let's talk a little bit and just bring to life what we mean by arousal dysregulation. So when we got good regulation, it is below our conscious awareness and control. When we got good self-regulation, we got a good balance. You may have seen this curve, which shows our arousal levels, so sort of the tone of our nervous system, how highly activated it is, and how well we perform. Okay, so when we've got arousal level at this kind of midpoint, we perform at our best. When we've got extremely low arousal, we get those sorts of symptoms. We feel sedated, slowed down, we can feel dizzy, nauseous, groggy. I'm not going to list them all out, but at one extreme, we can get the freeze response. Okay, at the other response, where our nervous system is highly aroused, we get the fight-flight response, which can include some of those other symptoms as well. Okay, so we talk about nervous system regulation. What does it take to be in this zone in the middle here, where we perform at our best, where we feel at our best? Well, there's two parts to it. There's the electrical regulation, that's the activation or the firing of the neurons. When multiple neurons fire, it creates the electroencephalogram, the brainwave patterns that we can pick up on the scalp. It's our brain's electrical circuits is one way of thinking about it. We also require neurotransmitter regulation. So we're going to drill into this in a bit more detail in a second. When two neurons communicate with each other, when one neuron fires to activate the next one, we depend on neurotransmitters communicating across the synapses. So the synapses are the gaps between different parts of different neurons, which I'll explain in a second. And these little dots are the neurotransmitters. Okay, these are chemicals. So we need both the electrical system to be well regulated and the chemical system to be well regulated to get optimum nervous system regulation. So let's look at neurons, and this is about as as sciencey as it gets, I promise you. So if we look at a neuron on its own, it's got a body, okay? It's got dendrites, which can be thought of as the inputs to the neuron. And then it's got an axon, which can be thought of as the pathway to the outputs of the neuron, okay? And some of these axons, as you can see from the diagram, can be very, very long because they can go throughout your body, okay? So how about two neurons talking to each other? Okay, so similarly, this is neuron number 1, this is neuron number 2. What you've got here is you've got the dendrites can pick up various things which can cause them to fire. When they fire, they will be communicating to the next neuron's dendrite via a neurotransmitter. Okay, so the electrical signal creates the brainwave signal and releases the neurotransmitter to the next neuron. And neurotransmitters include some of the things you'll have heard of, like serotonin and dopamine and GABA and others. So if the current mental health paradigms do not address nervous system dysregulation, we'd like to introduce a new mental health paradigm which does address neurosystem dysregulation. So we see mental health or many mental health conditions as symptoms of nervous system dysregulation. And the approach is to improve that nervous system regulation using neuroplasticity. There is no need to discuss any trauma or even to be able to remember it. It's highly effective. It does address the root cause. It can build the scaffolding for further psychotherapeutic interventions in the future, and it's scalable. So just to recap what we're talking about. So the traditional approach is take the symptoms to the waiting list, get the diagnosis, join the next waiting list, and get treatment, which is either medication or therapy. But as we've described, if you have a dysregulated nervous system, medication is not going to address the root cause of that. And talking therapy is not going to enable you to talk your way out of that or think your way out of that. If we can understand the symptoms to the point we can understand the root causes, and then we can create a remediation plan which re-regulates the nervous system through both the electrical aspects and the chemical aspects, we suggest that it is a much more effective approach to our mental health and our mood challenges. So the solution that we're introducing today is what we call in mood mastery. Two parts to mood mastery: electrical dysregulation and neurotransmitter dysregulation. The solution to the electrical dysregulation is the neurofeedback therapy. And in this package, we're offering 20 sessions over 10 weeks, i.e. 2 sessions per week. And the neurotransmitter dysregulation is resolved through amino acid supplementation, okay, in parallel with neurofeedback therapy for up to 3 neurotransmitters. And this is the first time such an integrated program has been available outside the USA. I'm just going to do a couple of slides on to sort of summarize neurofeedback and the amino acid therapy, and then Mark will drill into more detail, because I think a number of people coming to this will be familiar with the neurofeedback, but less familiar with the neurotransmitter re-regulation process through the amino acids. So in terms of neurofeedback, we have a tool we can use to enable the nervous system to learn to regulate itself better. It does that by changing, okay? So this slide says that neuroplasticity is both the problem and the solution. And what we mean by that is when we go through trauma, our nervous system, our brain will change, okay? That's perfectly natural, that's perfectly normal. It's what it's designed to do, but it can leave us with unhelpful response habits after that danger has passed. Our therapy, our neurofeedback therapy, changes the brain. Example there of changes to the brain after a program of neurofeedback. They're activated in certain circumstances which they weren't before. And another study we like to use, which showed after a program of neurofeedback therapy, increases to the volume of grey matter, okay, i.e. the neurons, more neurons, and increases in the length of the white matter tracts, which is the connections between the neuronal tissue. That's what it looks like in practice. We put sensors on your head. We use an amplifier to amplify the signals. We process the signals. We deliver feedback back into your brain by playing movies. The size of the picture changes, which is visual feedback. The volume changes, which is audio feedback. And we have a vibrating cuddly toy, which gives you tactile feedback. Sits next to you on the chair, gives you tactile feedback. Through this learning process of 20 sessions, we can re-regulate the nervous system. Okay, and then if we zoom in on that picture of those two neurons talking to each other, you'll see the earlier picture, which shows this part of this neurotransmitter, this part of this neuron, this part of this neuron, and the little chemicals, which are the neurotransmitters. Okay, so the neurotransmitter chemicals are essential for nervous system regulation. Where do they come from? They come from amino acids. Often we get amino acids from our diet. If we've got a sensible diet, we will be getting amino acids. However, the system sometimes goes awry. But what we can do with fairly intensive dosing of amino acids, and Mark will talk about this in more detail, we can kickstart the neurotransmitter creation process where it has gone awry. And what we find is there's no need for continuous supplementation. After about 3 weeks, that self-generation process has been kick-started, which will continue provided some simple dietary guidelines are followed. Okay, now I'm going to hand over to Mark, who will talk to you a bit more detail about the amino acid supplementation to improve neurotransmitter regulation.
Yeah, thanks, Stuart. So I don't know if people have come across, you perhaps heard about neurotransmitters. What I want to do is just very quickly show you what should normally happen. So this is the process. So if everything's working properly, what happens is we eat food. So we eat protein, hopefully, as a part of that food. And the protein then draws out then amino acids are drawn out from the protein. Through then a chemical chain reaction, those amino acids then turn into the neurotransmitters that Stuart brilliantly showed there, talking to each other or transferring information. And those neurotransmitters that we're talking about today, there are many neurotransmitters because they're involved in absolutely every function in the body. What we're focusing on today is those neurotransmitters that mediate all of our moods. So they mediate how we feel and kind of how we respond. So just to give you a couple of examples, here, this is the part of where the amino acid then gets transformed into a neurotransmitter. So here we're looking at the top here at the amino acid tryptophan, and that then the next part of the chain reaction is that then turns into 5-HTP, and then 5-HTP then turns into serotonin. So that's the amino acid to serotonin. So that's a process that if your gut system is working properly, the amino acid tryptophan is converted to serotonin. The next one we'll look at then is the amino acid tyrosine. So here we've actually got the mechanism shown in actually inside the neuron there. So we've got tyrosine is the amino acid, so that's converted out of the protein. That turns into L-DOPA, which then turns into dopamine, and the dopamine then crosses the gap, and we get the benefit. We then experience what we would experience from dopamine. Sorry, can I just go back to that slide? Sorry, there's one thing I was just going to share on there as well. When we talk about underlying causes, we're principally talking about the neurotransmitter underlying causes today. But you'll notice here, actually, that we've got some other little information particles here labeled COMT and MAO. Now, COMT and MAO actually are driven by genes. So we have a COMT gene, we have an MAO gene. And those genes contribute into this signaling that's crossing the gap there. Now, actually, we can also have some underlying dysregulation caused if we have some slight variations in how our COMT or MAO genes, how they express themselves. And actually, if that expression is wrong, if that expression is running incorrectly, then actually we're not going to get the right chemical information passing across, and therefore that will impact on the dopamine pathway. I'm sure you know dopamine is all about kind of the reward pathway. Sorry, yeah, the next slide. So just to give you an idea then in terms of neurotransmitters, most of these you'll have heard of, and maybe one or two that you haven't, but we've got here adrenaline, which I'm sure most of us know is all about our fight or flight response. We have GABA, which actually is our calming neurotransmitter. So that should calm our nervous system down. Noradrenaline on the left there is about our concentration and our focus and so on and so forth. Learning is supported by acetylcholine, which activates all of our learning abilities. Dopamine, as we know, is all about pleasure. Glutamate for the memory. Serotonin, we're probably pretty much familiar with serotonin. So serotonin is about this feeling of well-being and happiness. And our endorphins, which we all kind of know are linked to exercise. Interestingly, when you just going back to the psychiatric and medication model, what we're showing you there is 8 neurotransmitters which can impact all of those elements of your mood. Interestingly, in terms of pharmaceutical treatment of mental health, they only really will ever offer treatment across 2 of those neurotransmitters. So one is the serotonin. We're familiar probably perhaps with the SSRI type antidepressant, and actually potentially the noradrenaline pathway with norepinephrine, so the SNRIs, which are sometimes prescribed. So immediately you can see that actually there we've got 8 things that can affect our moods, which can include leading to our feeling of depression, whereas actually there are 12 underlying biochemical drivers of depression, but the doctors are only ever going to look at 2. Sorry, Stuart. Yeah, next one. So here's something else that's kind of really important to understand, is that if you're experiencing any of these symptoms that we're talking about today, if you're experiencing anxiety, if you've got work stress, home stress, relationship stress, mood swings going on, if there's a trauma, past, which you keep thinking about, or present that you're experiencing, you've got poor sleep, you've got energy problems, you struggle to focus, your energy crashes that are going on. All of those things happening to you actually have the impact of depleting your levels of chemical neurotransmitters, so that actually when the signaling comes down, and it, as we've demonstrated there, is you're looking for it to cross the gap. There's nothing to cross the gap. So if you've got these things going on, then actually you're busy depleting your neurotransmitters. And therefore the symptoms are going to get worse. The other bunch of things that are also contributing to depleting our neurotransmitters are certain substances and behaviors. So if we're consuming sugar or caffeine or nicotine or alcohol, prescription medications, highly processed foods are great at completely destroying our neurotransmitters. Along with behaviors as well. So, addictive behaviors that are going on also contribute to reducing these neurotransmitters. So hence, if you've been trying to get beyond any of these you know, kind of mood imbalances for any period of time, actually even just living in that is actually making the situation even worse. So we need to do something about that. Next slide, Stuart, sorry.
That one.
So yeah, that's the one. So okay. So we need to do something about that. And so in diagrammatic form, this is how amino acid and nutritional therapy works. So what we do is we provide a fast acting supply of the amino acids. What that fast acting supply does is it restores the neurotransmitters, so it rebuilds neurotransmitters in a natural way. Okay, well, all we're doing here is we're putting amino acids, which are in our bodies anyway, but we're bringing them in because obviously all of these all of these emotional mood struggles that we've got going on, and perhaps what we're consuming is depleting them. So we bring fast acting supply, restores the neurotransmitters, that rebalances the moods. And interestingly, and so powerfully, as Stuart's already mentioned, when we refire our moods, the nice moods, the good moods, the balancing moods, when we refire those with amino acids, actually what that does is it restarts, it re-triggers the body's natural neurotransmitter kind of manufacturing, if you like. So where a pharmaceutical of serotonin, for example, a pharmaceutical version, when it kind of locks into the neurotransmitter, it doesn't match exactly, whereas actually serotonin that's created through an amino acid is a natural chemical. It's a natural and it just fits in the lock. And when it fits in perfectly, then actually the body is, oh, right, okay, we need to be producing this, because it has either stopped completely producing it, or it's kind of very, very down regulated. So we get back to that place here where the body takes over that process. And for most people, within 28 to 56 days, their body's natural ability to mediate these moods is normally restored. And then if we can just sort out some rebalancing of our nutritional intake to cut out some of the things that are depleting our neurotransmitters, then obviously we get back into really good shape. And then you've got that match of you've then got the chemistry, which, as we've shown you, links into the electrical circuitry, and therefore you get that repair, you get to kind of live beyond. Just lastly, on that fast acting piece there, amino acids will hit the brain within about 10 to 20 minutes. So it is very usual that one of the great things here is we can dose people up to an effective level very quickly, generally over a couple of hours. For some people, we can do that in as little as an hour and a half. For some people, it just takes us a couple of days. But actually, we get to an effective level where you really actually feel the impact. So I've had people that have experienced a massive change in anxiety in anything between 10 minutes. I had somebody once with one capsule of amino acid, 10 minutes later, their anxiety had completely gone, to, you know, over the course of a couple of days. So, you know, back to what we were saying at the beginning, this is about something that you get impact from very quickly. And I know my clients also experience you know, very quick responses as well to the neurofeedback therapy as well. Certainly I see people's anxiety is reducing, and their sleep repairs, you know, starts that repair process very quickly as well. Thanks, Stuart. Next one.
Thank you, Mark, and thank you, folks, for bearing with us. So what does this program look like, this mood mastery process? You can refer yourself, or you know, we can take referrals from other other bodies. It's not funded by the NHS. This will be self-funded at this stage. There may be insurers out there who would cover it. I'm not aware of a UK-based insurer who's covered it yet, but it's always worth asking because this is a very dynamic field. We're interested in your medical history. We're interested to have you review a list of more than 180 symptoms. And from that, we will derive your individual neurofeedback plan, and we will derive your amino acid supplementation plan. We will also, from your symptom assessment, we will identify which symptoms are going to be your measures of success. This will be tailored to you. We ask you to rate symptom severity on a scale of 0 to 10, and then we track that on an ongoing basis. You've seen this slide before, just as a reminder. So the program includes neurofeedback therapy and amino acid supplementation in parallel. It's the first time such an integrated program has been available outside the USA. And what it does is it combines that need for good electrical regulation with good neurotransmitter regulation. I'm going to wrap up now. So it's all about restoring natural regulation without recourse to short-term measures with limited effectiveness. The existing paradigms of mental health do not address the nervous system dysregulation causing many mood issues. The mood mastery solution does provide an effective means to create permanent re-regulation. First time such a program like this is available outside the USA. It's available in our clinics in Surrey, Hampshire, Sussex, London, Birmingham. We also have a home-based training option available. It's a 10-week program, 2 sessions per week of neurofeedback therapy, plus the amino acid supplementation program, plus nutritional guidelines, so that once your amino acids are re-regulated or your neurotransmitters are re-regulated, you will no longer need the supplements. Limited space is available for initial phase. We're booking for November now. If you want to take the next stage, to address your child or your own anxiety, to address some of these arguments over electrical devices, the cravings for sugar, resolving your sleep issues, the worry and emotional challenges that teenagers within the house can create. If you just stop for a moment and consider what would you be feeling and what would life be different for you personally as a family, knowing what you know now, if you want to take the next step, you can book a mood mastery suitability call with myself, lasts for up to 30 minutes. The URL is bit.ly/mood discovery. There's a bit more information on this subdomain. If you have a call, we will answer any questions that you've got. We have to decide if you're a good fit for this mood mastery program, and we're a good fit for you to move your family forward. If you're a good fit, we'll get you booked in. If you're not, then we can reach that conclusion together.